Welcome to Spirituality Before and After Cancer. Chaplains Dana Rainey and Karen Terry, both who serve as chaplains at the Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, lead us in a dynamic conversation about spirituality, faith, and how it may grow or waver in the face of cancer diagnosis. Their experiences as hospital-based chaplains offer great insights into the role spirituality may play in the cancer experience. Please join me in welcoming Dana and Carrie, and thank you for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. I am Chaplain Karen Terry, and I am the Manager of Spiritual Care for Oncology Services at the Mount Sinai Hospital. I'm a board-certified chaplain through the Association of Professional Chaplains, and I've served as an outpatient oncology chaplain at the Mount Sinai Hospital since 2018.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dana Rainey, and I'm the staff chaplain at the Mount Sinai Queens Hospital. I've served as an outpatient oncology chaplain at the Blavatnik Family Chelsea Medical Center and Mount Sinai Union Square Clinics. As professional healthcare chaplains, Karen and I serve in a way that offers a heart of compassion, helps restore hope, and journeys with people in some of their most vulnerable times. We provide supportive services to help people on their journeys to cope with illness, align care plans with values, promote a culture of respect and dignity, and tap into their inner strength, resources, and spirituality. We are relevant and responsive in times of crisis for our patients, families, and associates. Our spiritual care attends to a person's spiritual needs and helps them find meaning, courage, and hope by drawing on their own spiritual and emotional wisdom. Our spiritual support may include listening with curiosity and openness, facilitating expression of feelings and experiences, exploring spiritual and religious beliefs to elicit and facilitate connection to sources of comfort, hope, and meaning, accompanying people who are grieving and sitting with people who are suffering, helping name, identify, and process conflicts, dilemmas, and sources of inner pain, aligning care plan with religious, spiritual, or existential values, facilitating communication between patients and their loved ones, or between patients and their medical team, including in family meetings, guiding people through spiritual questions, providing prayer ritual, traditional or innovative, sacred literature, guided meditation, and connections to clergy from specific faith groups. Caring for people with cancer involves not only the person's body and mind, but also their spirit. There is a role that religion and spirituality may hold in one's life. Before delving deeper into spirituality in the cancer journey, we want to lay out some definitions. Spirituality is a term that can mean different things to different people, and we want to ensure that we are all on the same page. Karen and I have been broadly using the term spirituality, encompassing many beliefs, practices, and experiences. We understand that this is a complex and sensitive topic, and we are approaching it with the respect and sensitivity it deserves. There are a plethora of definitions for spirituality, but the one we chose to share with you is according to the Consensus Conference on Palliative Care. It says that spirituality is a dynamic and intrinsic aspect of humanity, through which persons seek ultimate meaning, purpose, and transcendence, and experience relationship to self, family, others, community, society, nature, and the significant or sacred. Spirituality is expressed through beliefs, values, traditions, and practices.
So Dana just shared a lot of words. There are a lot of words in that definition, and so we want to take a moment to highlight the most important ones. First, spirituality is dynamic. It changes over time. So how we experience spirituality and understand the divine or the sacred when we're children is often very different from our experience as adults. And our life experiences also affect our spirituality. So spirituality is dynamic. The second key point here is that spirituality is intrinsic. That means it's an essential aspect of being human. Note that this doesn't mean that everyone believes in God or even has spiritual or religious practices. What it does mean is that everyone has a way of seeking meaning and purpose in their lives, experiencing relationships, as this definition says, between people, but also with the things that are important to us, and a way of connecting with something greater than ourselves, whether that is God, work, family, nature, science, or any number of other things.
In other words, we all have a spiritual worldview, even atheists, but some of us also consider ourselves to be religious. Religion is the search for significance that occurs within the context of established institutions that are designed to facilitate spirituality. Religion is also a way of experiencing and expressing spirituality within the context of various institutions and communities. It can help find meaning in suffering by clarifying promises and values and providing community support, redemption, and purification. However, it is important to know that religion is not only the way, it's not the only way of expressing spirituality. Whether grounded in religion, art, um, science, nature, or a combination, each of us has a unique spiritual worldview that guides us in answering life's big questions.
Illness, and especially a serious illness like cancer, can truly beg those big questions. It can force us to face our fragility, our limitations, and our mortality. In other words, a small hole in the body, illness, can cause a large hole in the soul. And of course, we're not only talking here about an actual physical hole or injury to the body, but a serious illness, anything that affects our body in a serious sort of way. As meaning-making or spiritual creatures, right, as that intrinsic aspect of humanity, that spiritual side of us, often the first question that we ask when we do face hardship is why, right? Why is this happening is one of the biggest spiritual questions out there. But there are others too that certainly come up when we're facing a serious illness like cancer. Illness affects our bodies, and our bodies are our primary way of expressing our identity. If our pain or weakness or treatment side effects limit our ability to function, we might not look or feel like ourselves. So some of those big spiritual questions that can come up are, who and what do I have faith in? Another way of thinking about that is, who can I trust? What can I live with? What can I not live without? What makes me me? Who am I if I can't do all the things that I've always done? Can I find peace with my limitations? And if so, how? And of course, as with many illnesses, a big question that can come up is what happens after we die, as serious illness can force us to confront our mortality.
So, what do all these questions mean for our spirituality or faith? The answer is that it depends on the person. After a cancer diagnosis, a person's faith or spirituality can be a source of strength or a place of wavering. Identifying and redefining the meaning of faith could be helpful as one evaluates cancer's impact on one's spirituality and embarks on one's journey.
For many people, faith is a source of strength and comfort when they're facing cancer. So a couple of metaphors: a balm for that hole in the soul is one way to think about it, or a compass that can guide us through the wilderness. Religion or spirituality can provide a sense of meaning, hope, positivity, strength, and comfort. And it can provide a connection to a sense of gratitude and a supportive community. So we're going to work our way through these, Dana and I, just giving you some examples. So for some people, that sense of meaning that's central to spirituality comes from faith in a benevolent God or a higher power, and a sense that maybe there's a meaning or a purpose to our struggles that we may or may not ever really understand. For others, though, that sense of meaning might come from a belief that as human beings, we are a part of nature, and that cancer is also a part of the natural or scientific processes of the world. For others, they may see no inherent meaning in suffering, but can find comfort in a faith or a trust that we can create meaning from our struggles. Some examples of this are by learning and growing through our struggles, by becoming a role model to others, by passing on wisdom that's gained from our experiences, by participating in clinical trials to move research forward, volunteering for nonprofits that are meaningful, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever that source of meaning is, tapping into it can provide a sense of hope, optimism, and strength that can sustain us through hard times. It's easier to bear difficult burdens if you have faith either in a positive outcome, a belief that suffering has or can have meaning. It has helped us to accept our difficulties as a part of life and to focus more on the things that we do have control over.
Spirituality can also orient us towards gratitude, being grateful for what we have and who is with us, seeing the good that comes out of difficulty, noticing the silver linings, and recognizing what could be worse. Even amidst the challenges, focusing on the good that remains and expressing gratitude for what we have can help us weather difficult times more efficiently. And of course, spirituality is often centered in the community. Whether our church, synagogue, mosque, or temple, or running club, community garden, theater group, or meditation studio, often these communities provide a sense of belonging and a space for individuals to connect with others who share similar values and beliefs.
But it's really important to remember that these aspects of spirituality or religion can only work as that compass or that balm if they speak to your individual experience. A balm that works on burns, for example, is unlikely to work for a sprained ankle. Icy hot may be great for your aching muscles, but it's not going to help you with a broken bone. And beliefs and practices that give you comfort and from which you derive a lot of strength and meaning can be unhelpful for friends and families if they don't speak to that person's own experience. In some cases, they can even cause more suffering if pushing them on someone leads to a sense of emotional isolation or loneliness. So these are the many ways in which spirituality and religion can offer a lot of strength and comfort when facing a serious illness like cancer. But what happens when the answers we have for those big spiritual questions we talked about before aren't working for us? For as many people who find comfort in their spirituality in their cancer journey, there are an equal number who encounter spiritual struggles instead. So, to go back to our other metaphor, if we think of spirituality as that compass, what happens when the compass leads us to an obstacle in our path? It's disappointing. It's frustrating. It means we have to spend time and energy finding an alternate path. Sometimes that path might be easy to find. Maybe in this picture, you just go underneath through that hole under the tree. But sometimes it can be much, much harder. There might be a lot of fear that such an alternate route doesn't even exist. So the spiritual version of this might be someone who always felt connected to God at church, or who experienced transcendence through hiking or yoga practice. But now when they're sick, they don't have the energy to do these things anymore. Or maybe they're immunocompromised and they don't feel safe going to church and gathering in large groups. Another way that this kind of struggle might manifest is someone who found meaning in helping others and now is the person who needs help, or someone who values their role as a parent or in their job and now has to do less or participate less in those activities. Spiritual struggles like this mean we have to find new ways to connect with God or the transcendent or our sense of meaning and purpose, or new ways of expressing our identity. So Dana and I want to offer a few examples from our experience of chaplains that may or may not resonate with your experience. A lot of people experienced a form of this type of struggle during the height of COVID, when houses of worship were closed and everything shifted online. I think we can all agree that as great as Zoom is, virtual community isn't the same as meeting in person. At that time, when everything was shut down, a lot of us could feel like that was a temporary way of doing things and trust that we would get through it. But for many people with cancer, perhaps you as well, that sense of separation continued or continues long after congregations began meeting in person again. A lot of people didn't, and many still don't feel comfortable gathering in groups. And people have had to find new ways of connecting with community. Some of the ways that folks I've worked with have done this are through online community, prayer circles over the phone instead of in person, gathering in much smaller groups, which feel safer, connecting to other types of support groups like cancer support groups. One other example of this type of struggle I want to share with you is someone who I worked with who loved going for long walks in the park. She really connected spiritually through nature. But because of her new physical limitations, she could barely leave the house, which understandably made her feel really sad. But she was able to continue nurturing that love of nature and that spiritual connection by finding ways to connect with it even from within her own home. And one way that she did that was by feeding the birds on the fire escape outside her window.
I've encountered people who have to move closer to their loved ones, so that they can provide them with the support they need. This required moving from one state to another and being away from their accustomed environment, receiving medical treatment, and being closer to those who could care for them.
In all of these cases, a big part of the process of working through a struggle like this is acknowledging that the new pathway that you find, it's simply not the same as the initial one. We have to grieve whatever losses are inherent in that. It is sad sometimes to have to find new ways of connecting spiritually. But then we find ways of living with that grief and moving forward anyway. So that's what happens in this metaphor if your path is blocked. But what if the compass itself breaks and it can't show you the way anymore? If this happens, someone might feel completely lost, alone, scared, hopeless, helpless. Someone might clamber along and hope they find their way to somewhere familiar. They might sit down, stop moving, and wait and hope or pray that someone comes to find them. They might find some way of sending a distress signal. The spiritual version of this is that you might feel like God has abandoned you, if you believe in God, or that God isn't answering your prayers. You might find yourself questioning things that you've believed all your life about suffering or the way God or the transcendent works in the world. It might feel like life is meaningless. Something akin to this can also happen if you feel like your spiritual community is letting you down. Any one of these situations can feel lonely and scary. And it may require reevaluation of beliefs and relationships or new ways of understanding them. And again, Dana and I want to offer some examples from our work as chaplains. I once worked with the daughter of a woman who had very advanced cancer and was facing the end of her life. And for this person, the daughter's spirituality was really grounded in scientific understanding. And her mom's illness was really forcing her to confront the limits of science. There simply weren't good explanations for why her mom had cancer. In this case, sometimes science can offer those answers, but in this case, they couldn't. There weren't any more treatment options. And the timing was truly terrible, though, of course, there is no good time to have advanced cancer. But in this case, they had recently reconciled after a long estrangement and were just starting to rebuild their relationship. So science couldn't answer any of her questions, and she was facing a spiritual reorientation that could allow space for unanswerable questions and trusting in a sense of meaning beyond her understanding.
Going back to Karen's point of the spiritual compass breaking, especially if your spiritual community is letting you down, there have been numerous people who have shared with me the fear they have of letting their religious community know their diagnosis because of the community's beliefs that if you are ill, then you are in sin, or God is punishing you, or your lack of faith. They share feeling ashamed of their illness and feeling alone on their cancer journey. And in our conversations, they discover meaning for their predicaments that have nothing to do with sin, punishment, or lack of faith. And some develop the courage to share with their religious communities and educate them on the purpose of their journeys, while others have discovered new communities that are rooted in compassion, hope, and love.
One final example of this type of spiritual struggle is a woman that I worked with who was a caregiver to both her mother and an ill child. She was, in this case, a devout Catholic and prayed regularly. And when I met her, she was feeling incredibly scared, sad, and overwhelmed by her responsibilities. Whenever she felt overwhelmed by her emotions, she would step out of the room and pray, but she felt like God wasn't answering her prayers. So as we were talking, we explored what she was praying for, what it felt like to pray, what it felt like after she prayed, and what happened after she prayed, after she kind of stepped out of that space for a while. And she said somehow she always found the strength to go on and do what she needed to do for her family. Simply by having this conversation and reflecting on her struggle and her reality, she actually came to see the strength to go on as God's answer to her prayer. That broken compass, what she felt or feared was her lost faith, actually became more of a blocked path where she was expecting specific answers to her prayers. And in conversation, she was able to find a new pathway or a new way of understanding how God was working in her life. So those are some examples of different types of spiritual struggles that are all very normal and common on the cancer journey, and some ways that people have moved through them. The important thing to remember is that spiritual struggles don't mean that there's something wrong with you. They're a natural part of the spiritual journey. Remember back at the beginning when Dana read our definition of spirituality, we said that it was dynamic and it changed over time. Spiritual struggles are part of that dynamic aspect of spirituality, part of that process of change and growth. They're incredibly uncomfortable sometimes and painful, but they are normal and natural. We're not going to go into details about this, but it's important to recognize that almost all spiritual traditions have a way of understanding these spiritual struggles. Some examples are the dark night of the soul in the Catholic tradition from St. John of the Cross, which is a time of purification and spiritual growth that's also incredibly difficult and painful. Throughout the Hebrew and Christian Bibles, there are many times when people go into the wilderness, or the wilderness is used as a metaphor or a time of spiritual struggle and transformation. And in some Eastern traditions, there's a lot of teaching about learning from our struggles, learning something profound about who we are or how we respond to the world, and growing through those towards spiritual enlightenment or growth.
Spiritual struggles are a natural part of everyone's journey and something we can move through with the help of the spirit of light and love. We can move through them one day, hour, minute, and second at a time. The goal is to embrace and press forward. You may stumble, you may fall, but pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. With each step, you may become stronger and feel lighter. The struggle may be a journey of beautiful self-discovery and growth.
How long that process takes depends on many, many factors. Some struggles are inherently short-term. Let's say you're admitted to the hospital for a period of time, you don't lose a lot of debility, but you're not able to go to church or to synagogue or on those beautiful hikes, right? But when you're discharged, you are able to return to those ways of connecting. It's a short-term spiritual struggle. It may be really uncomfortable or difficult to be in the hospital, especially if it's a longer hospitalization. Other spiritual struggles, like reevaluating your faith or beliefs, searching for a new spiritual community, those can take a lot longer to work through and find your way to a new understanding or a new place of spiritual comfort. Regardless, in many cases, that hole in the soul can heal itself with empathy, self-compassion, time, spiritual reflection, and compassionate companionship.
Studies show that suffering is a part of the flow of life, which can be personally transformative. Part of the transformation process is finding meaning in the journey. Answering reflection questions, taking action, and community involvement are ways to identify meaning while on the spiritual cancer journey. While on your spiritual cancer journey, taking a moment to reflect on your spirituality can be helpful. By recalling memorable moments, experiences, encounters, you can identify the things that nourish your spirit and learn how to cope during this challenging time. Also, by taking the time to reflect on your thoughts and feelings, you gain a deep understanding of yourself and your spiritual journey. It's a powerful tool for self-discovery and growth. We invite you to answer these reflection questions that can help you with this process. Here is a list of reflection questions that we hope you will find helpful. What nourishes your spirit? Have you ever had what would be described as a spiritual moment? What did you learn from it? What are some ways your spirituality has been challenged? How has your cancer journey impacted your spirituality? What gives your life meaning? When have you felt peace? What gives you hope? What do you believe about the nature of suffering. We invite you to take time. You can pause this video and answer these questions in a journal if you like. Spiritual practices and rituals are essential for inducing spiritual experiences and cultivating spiritual development. Incorporated into your daily routine, these activities can be instrumental in enhancing your spiritual experiences and fostering spiritual growth. Few of these practices on our lovely diagram are dancing, mantras, cooking, lighting a candle, and creating an altar space. So I'm going to break a few of these down. Dance. Many have danced to express themselves and connect with their inner selves. Witnessing the joy and freedom of letting go and dancing with abandon is amazing. Reciting mantras. That's also been a widespread practice. Repetition of sacred words, it calms the mind. It can help you connect with the divine. It's a beautiful way to bring peace, serenity into your life. Cooking and eating good food have been another way to nurture your spirit. By caring for your physical body, you can better connect with your spiritual self. Lighting a candle and creating an altar have also been practices that help to connect with your spirituality. You can focus your mind and heart on the divine by creating a sacred space. It's a beautiful way to bring more reverence and gratitude into your journey. These practices have the potential to transform your life and bring you closer to spiritual enlightenment, whatever that enlightenment means for you.
Other ways to nourish your spirituality are by cultivating compassion and empathy. This can take some work. Imagining yourself in another person's shoes, really imagining it. Close your eyes, try to experience in yourself what it's like for that person. Deliberately seeking out the good in others, even if it's difficult. Listening without assumptions. All of this, we know, can improve relationships and improve overall feelings of satisfaction and peace. You can also continue reflecting, adding on to some of those reflection questions that Dana read earlier, really trying to identify and live into and live by your values and your beliefs. So really thinking, what are the values and beliefs that drive my actions on a day-to-day basis, especially when making big decisions? What is it that matters most to me? What do I believe is right? And then how can I continue to embody those values even if I'm facing new limitations or spiritual questions? Often there's a way to continue to do that, even with new challenges and limitations. You can practice forgiveness. This can be a tough one, I know, but we also know that forgiveness is good for both our physical and our spiritual health. It's important to know that forgiveness is not about condoning someone's actions. You don't have to reconcile with anyone in order to forgive in this way. Rather, forgiveness is about letting go from within yourself of anger and grudges. And if you need help, there are several types of forgiveness therapies out there that you can look up on Google and try to find a forgiveness therapist. Or perhaps a little more simply and close to home, a lot of forgiveness meditations, prayers, and practices also available for free online. You can seek transcendence through nature, art, or music. This one may not seem as hard, but it does take intention if you're using it to nurture your spirituality. Come to that space, that nature, that art, that music without distraction, with an intention of really experiencing it and letting it wash over you without using it as a background to conversation or other activities. In other words, take your time and go slowly, really deeply appreciate it and observe it and notice it. And finally, you can engage in contemplative practices. Those may be any of the things that Dana talked about earlier, any of the things in that word bubble, and really through the practice of mindfulness, by bringing your attention to almost anything, can serve as a contemplative practice, noticing how you respond to things, noticing what you're experiencing in a deep, deep way. Or they can be more traditional contemplative practices like reading sacred texts, prayer, meditation, etc. It can be on a regular schedule. Every morning when you wake up, you pour your coffee and you do your contemplative practice, or once a week, whatever it may be. But it also doesn't have to be necessarily on a regular schedule. The key is finding a way that works for you to build those practices into your regular life, even if it's just in passing throughout your day.
You can also nurture your spirituality by finding a spiritual community. Community involves a supportive network of people who can help you navigate your spiritual cancer journey, along with providing spiritual and emotional support. Let's think broadly. This can be a church, synagogue, but it could also be a poetry group, hiking club, or other group of like-minded people who are interested in growing and reflecting together. Spiritual community can help you grow spiritually, but can also be a source of support, and being with people could help you lean on them when you need to ask for help. Finally, find your chaplain. In the words of Football Hall of Famer and college football coach Deion Sanders, we are not hard to find. You can contact your care facility and ask if there is a spiritual care department or pastoral care services. Our goal is to serve you and support you in anything you need to be spiritually and emotionally supported while on what I like to call your healing journey. But if you're not able to find a chaplain, consider who is in your life, who will listen to you without judgment, who will accompany you in your struggles without offering unrequested advice, and who will ask you or who will ask you questions that help you come to your own answers, who can provide compassionate guidance when you're ready for it, and who won't take it personally when you disagree or sometimes or something they suggest doesn't work for you, right? Who are those people who might suggest or accompany you in prayer, meditation, or another contemplative practice? These may be the same or different people. Some may be easy to identify, others may be harder. But finding someone or several someones who can accompany you emotionally and spiritually can be transformative. Well, this concludes our presentation on spirituality and the cancer journey. We hope you found this time informative and helpful in your spiritual journey and navigating cancer. We hope you really will reflect on the questions asked and know that although it may be a struggle on this journey, You are never without hope and support. Chaplains are here for you. Have a blessed day.